Catholic Moments, episode 161. How to get to I Do.
Catholic Moments is sponsored by CatholicMatch.com, the leading Catholic singles community. Being single can be a challenge. Catholic Match helps make it a little easier. To get started today, visit CatholicMatch.com/Lisa.
Finding joy in the journey and hope in the heaven yet to come.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Moments. And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendy.
Well, greetings everyone and welcome to another episode of Catholic Moments, the show from CatholicMom.com, where we talk about all things faith, family, and fun from a Catholic perspective. And I'm so happy to be with you for this week's show. We're going to focus just a little bit on the world of Catholic dating. And we have a special deacon moment. I've got a few words to say about my good friend, Deacon Tom Fox, in just a few moments. Our special guest for this week is Amy Bonaccorso, who is the author of a great book entitled How to Get to I Do, a dating guide for Catholic women. And I thought this would be a great time to share some good news with you from our good friends at CatholicMatch.com. You know them as the sponsors of Catholic Moments, and because of their support, we're able to put on this show and do a lot of the work that we do over at CatholicMom.com and keep these resources free for literally folks coming from hundreds of countries around the world. And because of their support and because of their encouragement, I'm able to commit the time that I do to the apostolate of CatholicMom.com. And so I thank them for that. And I want to just share with you some good news that they've recently shared with me. They share that a record number of Catholic singles, and that's actually more than 22 million, exist in our church today and are looking for services from the church. And Catholic Match has experienced record growth in 2010, and they attribute that to a lot of different factors, but especially to the current U.S. bishop's emphasis on building healthy marriages. They've just recently redefined their website, including a brand new blog called Faith, Hope, and Love, and they've got so many great bloggers over there. We do share some of their content at CatholicMom.com with a special blog post every other week from CatholicMatch.com, but if you're looking for more of their resources, and if you'd like to support them in the work that they're doing for those who are seeking online support, living out their vocation to the Catholic single life, you can visit CatholicMatch.com/Lisa. And I do thank them again for their great support of the show. And, you know, another great supporter of this show is my good friend, Deacon Tom Fox. He normally comes to us each week via the beauty of the podcast, and you can hear him with his lovely wife Dee over at their own show, CatholicVitamins.com. But today was a special treat because I actually got a dose of Catholic vitamins right here in Fresno in person. Deacon Tom and Dee came over all the way from San Francisco. They live over in Florida or in Arizona, and we're actually here in Fresno for the day with me. We had Mass at our beautiful cathedral for the Diocese of Fresno, and then we went out to a great lunch, and it's just so nice to sit down with the two of them. We've done it before, but to have that time in person, and you know, every bit of the inspiration that we get from Deacon Tom over at CatholicMom.com through his columns and through his weekly Deacon Moments, but also especially through Catholic Vitamins, their podcast, you know, multiply that by 100, and that's how inspirational this couple is in real life. And so it was a real treat to spend time with them, and I'm very happy to share with you this week's Deacon Moment from everyone's favorite online deacon. Here he is, Deacon Tom Fox.
God willing, by the time you hear this Deacon Moment, I will be on an extended date with my dear wife, Dee. We're traveling out to California for some family time with our sons and some refreshment time for Dee and I because it's our anniversary. Did I ever share with you that we were married on Halloween? We were. There's a delightful little episode from the day we were married. After the marriage ceremony and the reception, we came back to the apartment where Dee and I were going to live. Several out-of-town family members came back there with us, and all of a sudden there was a knock at the door. We thought it was maybe more guests arriving. It turned out to be young trick-or-treaters. We had never given a thought to it being Halloween. We had no candy, and so the men started scrambling to bring up change to hand out. But the thing that was fun was that when Dee and I went to the door to let our guests in, The children saw lovely Dee in her wedding gown and me in my tuxedo, and they went, wow. Like, hey, these guys really went far out in neat costumes. Yes, we did. They were costumes meant to symbolize a day that would live on forever. I found a website recently. It's called something like Dating Your Spouse. It reminds us that marriage relationships are dynamic. They are alive and always changing. When you hear of words between a couple, "You're not the person I married," I hope you're not surprised. I've often said that my wife Dee has been married a dozen times. Each time it was to a fellow named Tom, and yet each marriage was different. There is always something new about your spouse, and so a date or an extended date is a chance to find out what's new. One of the things we had to learn, and no one told us about it, is this. Like most couples, we spent our early years loving and concentrating everything on our 4 kids. When they are gone, you've got to have something in the marriage that doesn't depend on the children being the center of your lives. Dating helps remind you that you got married because you dated. It's a good way to stay married. 2 final thoughts about continuing to date. At least on or near your anniversary, go out on a date and remember the old times and the memories. Reliving memories reminds you of what you've been through, and it sets up hopes and opportunities to plan for your future. I want to take this opportunity to tell Dee I love you and happy anniversary. I thank God that she's decided to live her purgatory here on earth by putting up with me. I love when we go and do things and when we walk hand in hand as if we're newly in love. Because in a way, our love is always evolving and new. This is Deacon Tom. Blessings.
Hey, happy anniversary, Deacon Tom and Dee, and happy birthday, Dee. It was just so great to spend time with you guys, and I wish our listeners could do that, because honestly, this is just such a wonderful couple, and I just draw so much inspiration from my friendship with them, and it was just a real retreat type of an experience to spend the day with them. So I thank them for coming all the way to Fresno, and if you would like to spend more time with Deacon Tom and Dee, you can visit them over at Deacon Tom's website, which is deacontomonline.com. Or be sure to subscribe to their weekly Catholic Vitamins podcast over at catholicvitamins.com. I know you'll enjoy it. And now let's hear from our favorite little teenager. Here's Avery with this week's Teen Moment.
Hi, this is Avery from the Live Out Loud podcast, bringing you this week's Teen Moment. Okay, well, I hope everyone is having a great week so far. For me, life is busy as always, but it's also great as always. And one way that I love to pray is by journaling. I'm totally a quoteaholic, so I love reading different quotes and writings by some of the saints and from the Bible, and just writing them down, thinking about them, and really meditating on them. And one quote that I came across yesterday while I was journaling, and I especially loved it, it was from Saint Teresa of Avila, and it says, "If you have everything but Christ, you have nothing. If you have nothing but Christ, though, you have everything." And I really liked that quote, and it reminded me, as I was journaling about that, it reminded me of a verse, Romans 8:31. It was our confirmation retreat verse, so we did a whole retreat on what it really meant. And Romans 8:31 says, "If God is for us, then who can be against us?" And both of these show something to us about life. One, life is not about us, but it also shows us that we can so completely trust the one that it is about. Being a Christian doesn't mean going to church on Sundays. It doesn't mean sometimes reading the Bible. It doesn't mean being a good person. Being a Christian means daily offering up our lives to God, saying, "God, I am clay in your hands. Use me." It's making Jesus your everything. It's trusting him, and it's loving him. And with that, it all falls into place. Love, faith, commitment, even our fears and worries, all of that will fall into place. The verse from Romans reminds us that there's nothing to be afraid of. We are called in this life to fall just head over heels in love with our Creator and our Savior, Christ Jesus. If God is for us, then who can be against us? What do we have to fear? We're beautiful creations of this mighty God and King. So, God never said, oh, hey, once you become a Catholic and give up your life to me, then life is just going to be easy. You're not going to have any problems. No one's going to hate you. It's just going to be fine and dandy. God didn't say that, We read, a lot of our readings lately, our second readings of Mass, have been written by Paul. And Paul is he's in prison, basically. He is in prison, and he's writing as encouragement, saying, I am a prisoner for Christ's sake. I am a prisoner. I am being chained because I have this love for God. So God doesn't say, oh, hey, it's going to be so easy. But he does say it is so worth it. Our life here is so short compared to our eternal life. So what do we have to fear? So the challenge for this week is to evaluate. Where is Jesus on your priority list? Somewhere on it, nowhere on it, or the only thing on it? Really think about that. Because if God is for us, who can be against us? With something to think about this week, I'm Avery, and this was your Teen Moment.
Hey, Avery, you always give me something to think about. Wow, what a great series of thoughts you just shared with us. And be sure to check out Avery's Live Out Loud podcast. You can find that over at www.livewtl.com. And I'm amazed that this girl can be a great student, a fantastic lacrosse player, a podcaster, all rolled into one. And she's only a freshman in high school. So be sure to check out her show. And next up, let's hear from our good friend, Sarah Reinhardt, with this week's next reflection on the mysteries of the Rosary. Here's my good friend with our Mary Moment.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth.
And my name's Sarah Reinhardt.
It's time for Mary Moment.
She held him close. She watched him grow and mature, from his first steps to his last breath. She was his first disciple and, even more, his first contact with humanity. It was in her womb that he began as we all do, a mere cluster of cells. He kicked her from within before she ever saw his face. She nursed him in her arms, watched him crawl away, stood at the door while he learned his trade. She made him dinner and taught him through her everyday actions what family means, what love is, and what God sent him to save. In the cocoon of her home, she could keep him safe from the outside world, but he still must have suffered the scrapes and tears of boyhood, the hurts and pains of human relations, and the painful learning curve of life in general. He would have seen, from the very earliest of his human existence, that life is painful, full of suffering, at even the simplest levels. He would have experienced the death of loved ones, the loss of friendships, the hunger for contact. What was it like to see him crowned with thorns, to see the mocking and hear the clamoring of the crowd? As she stood there, mother and disciple, what was her prayer? I can't help but think of the times I have stood by, helpless and mourning, watching those I love suffer. When I picture Jesus with the blood streaming down his face, his body an open wound from the scourging at the pillar, I think of his mother in the background. His sacrifice for each of us, for me and for you, was also a sacrifice she made. What did she think as she watched the head she had cradled, the man she had nursed as an infant, the son she had loved as he was knit within her? Did she pray for you and me in that moment? Was she aware of how her letting go, her suffering witness, would impact all of humanity? There was nothing Mary could do except pray. She could offer her plea to God, a cry of horror and humiliation. Mary teaches me, in this mystery, about the power of continuing to pray
even in the face of pain greater than I think I can bear. She shows me how to reach heavenward, even as my heart breaks for that person who's being torn by thorns. She is proof that the suffering, while torturous and wrenching, will not be the end. There's still suffering ahead, but there's also hope. Though the sorrowful mysteries may make me writhe, they also point to the redemptive power of the cross. The crowning with thorns might be agonizing and harrowing to witness, but it's also an arrow pointing me to the only way to Easter Sunday, through the journey to Calvary.
Thank you, Sarah. You know, I have to say that these reflections that you're doing on the sorrowful mysteries have been so meaningful to me. I have struggled with my prayer of those sorrowful mysteries in the past, and I've just been getting so much out of these weekly reflections. So I thank you for that, and I'd like to point our listening friends over to Sarah's website at snoringscholar.com, where you'll find all kinds of wonderful things and more great inspiration from my dear friend Sarah. And let me just say too that when I was listening to your reflection this week, Sarah's reflection closes out with music by our friend Susan Bailey, who I had the chance to meet in person a few weeks ago when I was back in Wellesley speaking. And I've loved Susan's music for years, but even more so now that I've gotten to hear her sing it in person. So be sure to check out Susan Bailey as well. So thanks, Sarah. And now we're going to turn to my interview conversation for this week. This interview is with Amy Bonaccorso, and Amy is the author of a great book entitled How to Get to I Do, a dating guide for Catholic women. So here she is, Amy Bonaccorso. Next up on today's episode of Catholic Moments, I'm very pleased to welcome our guest for this week, Amy Bonaccorso. Amy is from the Washington, D.C. area, and she's the author of a brand new book called How to Get to I Do, a dating guide for Catholic women. And we're so happy to welcome you to the show, Amy. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm great. And, you know, the minute that your book crossed my desk for review, I knew I wanted to have you on the podcast because it's just such a cool book, and I think it's greatly needed. And so I'm just so happy to have you on the show. And I do want to ask you, just let our listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm from the D.C. area. I converted to Catholicism in college, and interestingly enough, that happened as I was dating a Catholic boyfriend. I was not Catholic at the time, and I was raised in a spiritual but irreligious environment. And I dated in the D.C. area for a number of years, and what I found was a lot of the books that were available to me on Catholic dating or Christian dating, I found that a lot of them were written by well-intentioned people who nevertheless lacked real life relationship experience themselves. Maybe they were lifelong singles, maybe they were clergy. And, you know, a lot of my friends read the books and we just kind of felt like we weren't getting exactly what we needed. So that's one of the things that motivated me to write How to Get to I Do.
Well, it's really a great book. It's I think it's very entertaining read, and I mean maybe I'm not your target audience because I've been married for 24 years now, but it's the book that I wish I would have had this book when I was dating too, and I was the opposite of you. I was a Catholic girl marrying a non-Catholic guy, so some of the issues that you raise in the book are kind of relevant to me. Let's let everybody know, if they haven't seen the book, kind of give them an overview of what it's like and what your goal was in terms of the layout of the book.
Well, I tried to make it a quick read. I always try to envision people reading my books, because I hope to write other books, on a subway. You know, when they're rushing to work, they don't have a lot of time. They just really want some good down-to-earth advice that's easy and entertaining to read. So it's 14 chapters. I introduced the book with one of my, I guess, come to Jesus moments, you could say. I was leading my life with a checklist, and trying to find guys who maybe went to daily mass. I have the checklist in chapter 1, just all these things that a lot of Catholic girls put on their checklist. Catholic, like being devout, chaste, building a good career, college educated, physically attractive. And it blew up in my face because even though he and a lot of the other guys I was dating met the checklist, they maybe didn't have good human virtue. They really weren't compassionate to me, in this example in chapter 1 when I was very ill. So I start out with that, just what it's like to live in the real world. Then I talk about how discernment is empowerment, how strongly I feel that young women really need to spend some time considering for sure what it is they want to do in their life. Be sure about whether they want to get married or join religious life. Because some people hop on and off those trains, whether it's going for marriage or religious life. And so I think it's really important for people to be clear and sure what God is really calling them to do. And then also for women, deciding on a career, on what they're good at, these types of things are going to help them when they're out dating, because it's going to give them a sense of self-confidence and a sense of identity. And it's harder for a man to take advantage of a woman when she's strong with herself that way. I talked 2 chapters are on online dating. Ladies, if you're looking for a husband and you are not online, you need to get online. So I talk a lot about online dating. I talk a little bit, chapter 5, meeting men the old-fashioned way, places Catholic women should go. Chapter 6, modern dating etiquette. Etiquette has really changed a little bit over the past 20, 30 years. So I think that's an important chapter because so many of us women, we try to live maybe like our moms or expect our lives to go like our moms. And it's not always a good expectation or, to have because things have really changed. I talk about growing outside of yourself, how sometimes we really need to put that checklist down and just really look at the whole person that you're seeing on a date and getting to know. And it may mean that you need to grow outside of yourself or maybe accept somebody who doesn't listen to the exact same music you do or something like that.
Yes.
Things to consider before committing. That's chapter 8. That's very important because I list all the really important things that you really need to talk about before getting serious about a man and moving towards marriage, because unfortunately a lot of priests will tell you this. Couples will get into pre-Cana or marriage prep and they will not have discussed key issues like openness to life, children,
finances. Yeah. I was shocked by that. I was very shocked by that.
Yeah. Chapter 9 is one of my favorite chapters. That's when holy rollers don't measure up. And that's actually a groundbreaking chapter in Catholic publishing, I have to say, because I discuss some of the types of men that you can meet in the Catholic scene who may seem devout. They may have a very disciplined religious practice, like going to daily mass or saying the rosary every day. But women get to know them and they realize, whoa, this person doesn't know how to apply the faith to daily life. And that was very important for me. I mean, I even got an email today from a girl who was telling me about some of her experiences. It's one of those common experiences that many Catholic women have, but up until I wrote this book, I had never seen anybody else write about it. So I try to help women by describing some of the types of men that they may bump into so that they're a little bit more prepared than I was, for example. Chapter 10, fighting for respect and chastity. That's a good chapter about boundaries and just really, I don't know, making sure that you're strong in your relationships and command respect. Chapter 11, coping with disappointment and betrayal. That's, a lot of us get heartbroken a few times before we meet our husband. So I talk a little bit about how to move beyond a breakup and how important it is really to mend your heart and keep going and rebuild yourself. Chapter 12, Secular Sisterhood. That is a term that I coined. And that's about a growing group of women I became aware of. And actually, I was probably a member of the Secular Sisterhood at one point during my dating experience. And that's, they take many forms, but these are like a growing group of women who are not finding their relationship. They'll be 35, 40, have done all the things that they thought they were supposed to do, and they're just not finding anyone. And I found that there were certain pitfalls that a lot of them were falling into. So I took some time to focus on that, because it truly is possible to easily break out of it once you become aware of what you're doing. And some of it may be being too rigid, or, a lot of really religious women, they dream of marrying an ex-seminarian.
Yes,
or
I thought that was really poignant when you,
And, then they wait and wait and wait. And when he never comes, it's like, oh, I just, 15 years have gone by.
Right. You've set the bar so high, and that you're in a habit that is difficult to get out of, I think.
Yeah. And I talk about engagement in chapter 13. Engagement is one of those time periods where I think a lot of women think it's going to be the most wonderful time of their life ever. And for some women it is, but for a lot of women there are bumps in the road. And I really wanted to warn people about that, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything defective with their relationship or they shouldn't move forward. In a lot of cases, it's just not always the easiest time, because it's very stressful and you're doing lots of planning, especially, these days with the economy being so shaky. Think of all the money that goes into weddings and preparation.
Exactly.
And so chapter 14 is a continuation of that topic with Here Comes the Bride, what to expect with your wedding. And I really like something I said in that chapter is just to remember that when you get married, it's not all about you. People say it's all about you. It's all about the bride. And really, if we think about the body of Christ and what it really means to our families and to our friends, I think it's important to let them into the experience and be sensitive to their needs a little bit too. We're coming up with our plans, because for a lot of weddings it can involve extensive travel.
That's very true. It's very true. And one of the things about the book, every once in a while there's a little someone who pops in and gives some little sidelines. Tell us about that part of the book.
Well, my husband has some sidebars in the book where he kind of chimes in, and the publisher recommended that. They asked for that, and I think it was really cute. And a lot of people tell me they very much enjoy that, getting his perspective.
It is. I think it's a nice little piece of it, because, we women can have a certain take on things, but it's nice every once in a while to hear from a man too about what their side of the thing is. For example, that they don't want to just, during the engagement period, just be, they want to express their opinion about things, I think. So, well, the book is really great. One of the things that I know, when I picked it up, I looked for, and I know you specifically address it as that Catholic dating a non-Catholic type of an issue. And can you kind of just talk to that just a little bit about your feelings about that? If your goal is to be in a Catholic marriage, how do you feel about that particular topic?
Well, faith is definitely a priority. I mean, I know that after I converted, I tried very hard to seek out other Catholics and people of my same mindset, because I wanted to be equally yoked, and I did want to have a Catholic marriage. It's obviously going to be easier if you're married to someone who kind of comes from a similar worldview and shares your faith. At the same time, I don't think it's always appropriate to completely rule out all non-Catholics when you're dating, because God works through non-Catholics too. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I became Catholic, like I said earlier, because a Catholic man decided to date me. And God used that relationship to bring me into the church. It's not something, the conversion wasn't something I did to please him. There was a genuine bond there, and I genuinely wanted to become Catholic through that relationship. I think God touches people through their relationships. and we have to be open to that. You want to marry someone with good virtues who will be there for you when times are tough. So disciplined religious practices shouldn't be the only thing you look for in a prospective spouse or their religion. I mean, you could find somebody who's maybe Protestant, who has a very genuine relationship with God, has a huge heart, and is very generous. And at times that may mean more. For example, if you're severely ill and you need somebody who's going to be there for you. In chapter 1, I talk about myself. I got severely ill, and a devout Catholic guy I was dating really didn't treat me very well. And it wasn't just me who's experienced that. I had a coworker who is not Catholic. He's a Protestant Christian, but he was also dating a girl at one point who was a very devout Christian as well. He was severely ill in the hospital. She was nearby, and she didn't come to visit him. These are the types of things I think people really need to consider when they get into the checklist mentality, because when you really, really need someone, you want to marry somebody who's going to be there for you.
Right.
And
One of the
God really comes through.
One of the things that I talk to people about with respect to that, because my husband ended up converting after 17 years of our marriage, but one of the things is to avoid trying to think that you're going to change that person. You know, don't marry them thinking that things are going to change eventually. If that happens, that's great. But if it doesn't, know what you're getting into. And the other thing that I talk with my boys a lot about is watch how I have teenage boys. So we talk about this, and I'm trying to train them to be good future husbands or good future priests, whichever God may have for them. But I think both of this is relevant, that when they're dating people, to look at how those people treat the other people in their lives. And I think for women, if you can look at how a man treats his mother, his sisters, the respect with which he speaks to other women, that tells a lot about what it's like in real life when the glory days of dating are over and it's time to live day-to-day life. I just love the book, and I'm curious to know, now that it's out, what your plans are. You're entering into a new phase of life, and I know you've got your website, amybonaccorso.com, and we'll be linking to that. But what does the future hold for you and your husband?
Well, I'm continuing to blog on this topic, even though I'm married, and me and my husband both very much try to be there for our single friends and to be helpful when they have relationship problems and whatnot. And I'm actually starting to pitch a second book on business. So I went to New York City this weekend. So
wow, that's exciting.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. It's about my government career. So, and my husband's very happy and supportive of all the publishing stuff, so I'm blessed in that.
That's fantastic. Well, the book is really great. Again, for everyone who's interested, it's called How to Get to I Do, a dating guide for Catholic women. And, I want to say, even if you're not a Catholic woman, that there are many topics in here I think that are relevant both directions. So it couldn't hurt to pick this book up if you're anyone, looking to get to I Do. And if you're a parent out there of a teen like mine, even if they're not of marriage age, I think this is a great book to start, helping them kind of shape their ideas about who they should be dating too. So I think it has a lot of great usage for lots of different types of readers. Amy, are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you get back to work?
Well, I think the online dating thing might be a good parting thought.
Yes, tell us your take on that a little bit.
Well, I've met many singles who will say, oh, I don't like the online dating thing, or oh, I don't want to do that, or I tried it once and it really wasn't that awesome. But I really want to say that if you really are looking for a spouse, please go online. I met my husband online. We've recommended that lots of our single friends go online. One of the men my husband helped, he told him to go online, and he found a wife online. So really, if you're serious about getting married, try to use that new dating tool, because it's matching people up and creating miracles every day.
And I have to say that Amy was not aware that our sponsor for Catholic Moments is actually CatholicMatch.com. So, and I expressly did not tell you that before the interview. So this is not a tainted interview with that recommendation. I second that because I have heard just so many beautiful stories. I was actually with someone the other day at a work trip away from home, and I invited her to go to dinner, and she said, I can't go because I have a rosary date on the telephone tonight with my husband. They were away from each other because of this work trip, and she's a newlywed who was married online, and I just thought, wow, God really drew those two people together for a purpose. So that's just fantastic. Yeah. And I think your beautiful marriage is a testament to that too. Well, again, our guest has been Amy Bonaccorso, and you can visit her website at amybonaccorso.com and check out How to Get to I Do, a dating guide for Catholic women. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks again to Amy for being a part of this week's show. And do check out the book. I think it's a great resource for anybody who's looking to have more information about the wacky world of Catholic dating. So thanks again to Amy Bonaccorso. And we'll have links in our show notes for you to get a hold of Amy's website and of this book. And I thought I'd share with you a new segment on the show this week. I have been regularly being featured on a Catholic radio show, the Sunrise Morning Show out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And Brian Patrick is the host over there, and he and his producer, Matt Swaim, have kindly welcomed me to do a new segment on their show each week, which has to do with our families and with technology. And we've been talking a lot over there about issues like cyberbullying and how to protect our kids. But this week, we actually offered some saint solutions as we come up to the feast day of All Saints Day and All Souls Day, and as we get ready to celebrate Halloween. And what I did over there this week was to share some resources that we've collected for the website, and I thought, hey, maybe I should share these on the podcast as well. So these are some saint solutions for you online, things that you can check out across the web or on your smartphone. The first is if you're looking for resources to help the little saints in your life to write their saint reports, which are ubiquitous around this time of the year. If you have kids in religious education, if you're homeschooling, or if you have kids in Catholic schools, you're probably working on a saint report of some type, and you can check out J Club, which is from the Daughters of St. Paul on their website. It's a great resource. Also, if you want saint information but in podcast format, and I know all of you probably already know about these, but you want to definitely subscribe to the Saint Cast, Dr. Paul Camerata, and to the Among Women podcast with my good friend Pat Gone. And every week, Pat features fantastic women doing fantastic things, and she also has quite frequently reflections on the lives of the saints. If you're a proud iPhone owner, you'll want to check out the Saint of the Day app, which is from St. Anthony Messenger Press. It's one of my most used apps. If you're looking for Catholic coloring pages, check out the Waltzing Matilda blog, and this one has great resources of many different types, but one of my favorite things over there are the great saint coloring pages that they offer. And finally, the last resource I want to point you to this week is Catholic Icing, which is a blog that has all kinds of great Catholic mom and parenting tips, but this week they are running an online All Saints Day party, which means that moms literally from around the web are coming together to share their links to blogs that contain all kinds of great ideas for costumes, for recipes, for craft ideas, great activities that you guys can do in your homes to celebrate the lives of the saints. And I think that all these are great resources, and we'll have a link in our show notes to our Saint Solutions page over at CatholicMom.com, where you can get a hold of these resources. And be sure to be on the lookout for future kids and technology segments here on the podcast. And as we get ready to close out this week's show, I want to invite you to be part of the show by sharing your feedback with us. You can reach us anytime through our Facebook page over at facebook.com/Catholic Moments. You can be my friend on Facebook, Lisa Hendy, that's HENDEY, or follow me on Twitter. We love your voice feedback. You can call anytime to 206-339-9272, or simply leave us a comment on the blog wherever you're listening to the podcast, whether that's CatholicMom.com, CatholicMoments.com, or of course the great SQPN.com website, where you'll find a cavalcade of great Catholic programming options. That's the home of the StarQuest production network, and I'm so happy to be a part of the SQPN family, and that the show airs over there is a great treat. But if you head over to SQPN.com, you'll find not only Catholic Moments, but tons of great Catholic programming options for you, shows for everything from cultural things that you're interested in, things to help you make you healthier, holier, things to entertain you, family podcasting, even a Catholic pilot. So check it out, and be sure to also visit SQPN.com on Saturday mornings over at the live center of the website, where you can tune in to the recording of the Catholic Weekend Show. It's a really great, terrific program from SQPN.com. So be sure to check that out. And as we close out this week, I wish you and yours all the best. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, a great beginning to your week next week, and we'll see you soon on Catholic Moments. God bless everyone. Bye-bye.
SQPN, leading the way in Catholic new media.